We're talking law on Radio 97. Only a couple more weeks of the program to go. Still not too late if you have a question about the law to get it to us, and Despina happy to answer it for you. Just go to the website radio97.com.au. There's a couple of ways to contact us there, and all of that information is right there on the front page at radio97.com.au.
Alrighty, this case is probably one of my favourites that we've had for at least a long time, because mobile cameras, we know that they are everywhere. Police are on guard, waiting, watching and waiting to book someone for using their mobile phone. But this gentleman, real life story, he's been caught using his iPod. So a handheld iPod while driving. He's now gone to court for it. What is the story? What is the outcome, Despina?
Yeah, so Mr. Gallagher has been in the Magistrates Court in Southport. So this is obviously a real life story, and we have a determination, and it's recent. It's the 9th of November that the decision came out in the Magistrates Court in Southport, and the Department of Transport and Main Roads, of course, took him to court. Now, we're talking about, as everyone should be aware, of the Queensland road rules and about the illegal use of mobile phones. And I'm sure that everyone is well aware of those laws, and they have transformed, if you could call it that, over time as technology has also transformed. And I don't know if people are aware that the first time that these laws came out was 2009. And since 2009, we've had multiple changes with the transport road rules up to just last year. So I can see that what's happened over time is that the laws have continued to change as the progression of technology has, and they've had to tweak and fine-tune their terminology used in the legislation. Now, this is a really interesting case because we're dealing with the use, not of a mobile phone, as was determined by the magistrate. It was an Apple Ipod. So again, the current legislation here, fortunately for Mr. Gallagher, did not actually cover iPods. So we want to talk about a bit about the case and what the magistrate said, and let's talk about what may be in store for the future for those people who still have iPods.
Yeah, no, I know. I read this. I'm like, is it 2003? I'm sorry. Why is this gentleman using an iPod? No discrimination there. But this is unbelievable. So it's an iPod. If you remember what an iPod looks like, it's very similar to a phone, similar size, plays music. But he has been found not guilty.
It's been found not guilty, and we're actually going to get into the use, as the magistrate said, the noun mobile phone, and what does that mean? And we've even gone to the current edition of the Macquarie Dictionary to actually make a determination here. So it's fascinating. So yes, let's be clear. The driver was using and holding an iPod, just for those people out there that may not be aware. So an iPod, in this particular case, his iPod was an iPod 6. And accordingly, the iPod 6, as was seen in this case, was only allowed to play music. It's not a communication device. It's not an iPhone. You can't ring. You can't talk to people. You can't go on social media. So it's just a device that plays music, nothing more. The legislation refers to mobile phone. As we know, it defines a mobile phone. There are a couple of exceptions there, and the exceptions are very... it didn't fall into this category because the exceptions are CB radio or any other two-way radio device. Now, the intention behind the legislation, as you might be able to predict, is to try and put these fines in place because we're talking about driver behaviour and what distracts a driver. And of course, the use of a mobile phone, and particularly with the increase of social media use, people just don't use a mobile phone to call someone, but they also use it to check out what's happening on social media, what's happening on Facebook, what's happening on Twitter, what's happening on Instagram. So that's a massive distraction when you're driving. I think we all can agree with that. Obviously, calling someone, of course, can be a distraction.
Sending a text, while you're driving.
Sending a text message, checking your emails. So, you're actually really using a computer. So would you do the same thing if you had your laptop set up in your car? So your phone's a little mini computer. So we have laws to prevent that. Over the years, as I said, we've had changes to the laws as technology has advanced. There's been this expansion of the culpability through the widening of the term use as well. So what does it mean using a phone? So we've had laws changed about, well, what does that mean? Does it mean holding? Does it mean it's in your lap? Does it mean touching your body? So we've also had those changes come through. But look, this magistrate said here a few things. So use, we talked about the use being the nature of the interaction between a driver and a mobile phone has definitely changed. There's been, as she said, and I love this word, a metamorphosis of the word use by mobile phones, which we've seen as well. And also the use of the word mobile phone. But as she said, the noun mobile phone, you can't change that. A mobile phone is a communication device. Yeah. An iPod is an iPod. And it was clear with the evidence in this case that an iPod will only play music in this particular one. But she said clearly that therefore, even with all these changes that have happened with the metamorphosis of the change of use of mobile phone and what is a mobile phone and changes in technology, the mobile phone must take its natural meaning, okay? And the meaning that she took was from the 8th edition of the Macquarie Dictionary, which is the 2022 edition. A mobile phone is a device capable of communication, quote unquote, a portable cellular telephone, okay? And an iPod that plays music is not that device. Plain and simple.
Mic drop there. And it's such a good thing you highlighted there too, Despina. It obviously, depends on the model, because even in my mind, I was thinking of an iPod. Last time I had an iPod, it did have the capability to Facebook message, to call people through social media, that kind of stuff. So in that case, he could have been found guilty, but because of this particular case, and she obviously knew that it was an iPod, only played music, he was safe.
Well, that's right. So this magistrate did take some considerable time, and I think how many pages? I think it's a 20-page judgment. So she's took a lot of time to go through the background to the legislation, right? To explain how it's transformed over the years, to explain the intention behind the legislature with these road rules. What's the real intention behind putting these road rules out there, and comparing it with, okay, distraction and driving behavior under the use of a mobile phone. Can it be said that it's going to equally apply to an iPod when it's not a communication device, when it's not a cellular phone? So she took that time to carefully consider all of that, and then ultimately came to that decision. Now, whether or not the Department of Main Roads will appeal it, yes, is another
it's another
issue.
question.
And just briefly, you mentioned that, of course, the law has changed numerous times since it was originally introduced. I understand the Queensland Attorney General has also already said that they will look at changing it again if necessary to cover things like this particular case.
Yeah.
Well, remember, the intention behind this, as I said, is to curb driving behavior that's dangerous. That's a distraction. So I think there's probably an argument there for the laws to be changed to cover, well, any device that's portable that could potentially distract you if you're using it whilst you're driving.
Any portable device.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think, as perhaps per usual, not always, the laws are trying to keep up with changes, aren't they? So again, we're going to undoubtedly see changes next year with the Queensland road rules, perhaps the same with New South Wales, about covering all other devices that are portable that you actually use whilst driving. And I think, it'll definitely be ruled out in the future. But then how far does it go? And where do they draw the line with all sorts of other devices that you could potentially use out there? What about devices that are already built into a car that might be a distraction?
Yeah.
That you're allowed to touch at the moment and use for GPS, etc. So there's a whole range of other issues they've got to consider.
Yep. Well, bring on driverless cars, then we won't have to worry about it. We can just watch movies while we're driving to wherever we're going.
There you go.
I'm sure there'll be more lawsuits after that. So we'll always have something to talk about here on Talking Law. Despina, thank you so much for your time this morning. If anyone does want to get in touch with you over the next week or so until next Thursday when we're back on, where can they go?
Yes, so phone the office 55291 294, email info@prialalegal.com.au. These segments will be up on my YouTube channel again this weekend. And look, we're pretty much closing up, in about 3-4 weeks. So if anybody wants anything urgent, give us a call now. Otherwise, it'll have to wait till next year. But yes, we are very rapidly moving towards that Christmas closure.
Unbelievable. Thank you again, Despina, and Wayne. We'll talk to you next week.
See you next week.
See you then.